Hi, everyone. I am so glad that you are joining us today. And I'm so excited because I have one of my former clients on with us today to talk all about YouMap and everything that they learned with YouMap and all we're going to go over and I'm going to show all the different things that we did and and just ask some questions about it. And hopefully, Oliver can just talk about whatever he wants to talk about UMAP and working with me because I want this to be sort of like a real life testimonial since I don't have any of those on my website so far. So, Oliver, tell us about yourself.
Hi, my name is Oliver. I'm 14 and I worked with Cynthia a little while ago for just a few months. And we did the UMAP a little while into our coaching sessions, and it was totally mind-blowing. It was really awesome. I learned a lot, and it kind of helped me with like a lot of aspects of my life.
Great. Well, what I would like to do is go over each pillar and just show, I'm not going to show everything that we did just because we don't have time, but I want to show like at least a little bit from each pillar and kind of ask you some questions about what you got out of knowing that particular thing. And we always start with strengths. So I'm going to show your strengths Jamboard. And recently I saw that Jamboard is going to go away, but this is the
Oh,
same.
really?
I know, I'm so sad about it, but the same thing can be done on whiteboard. So I'm really just
Okay.
going to take this same information for my future clients and just doing it on whiteboard instead of Jamboard. But I like Jamboard a little bit better.
Me too.
But so the first thing that happens when you are working with your strengths is you learn your top five. And so for Oliver, for you, you had strategic, communication, empathy, futuristic, and ideation. So, first of all, tell us a little bit about did you know those things about yourself and what did you learn that you didn't know?
There were some things that I knew, like I've always known I'm kind of an artistic, creative person. I know I generate a lot of ideas, but there's some things like strategic that I never really thought of, and some other things like communication that
Mm.
I weren't really aware that they were my strengths in particular.
And communication really made sense. I'm going to get my glasses out so
It
I can
made
think
sense
about it.
once I heard it, but before
Mhm.
that, it just kind of didn't occur to me that that was like a strength that someone would have.
Right. And you love theater and you love comedy and you love um
I love
just kind of
performing
yes,
and
performing.
presenting, all
Mhm.
sorts of stuff.
And so that totally made sense for communication, but I think when I was your age, I probably didn't realize that communication was a strength either.
Yeah.
And then as part of what we do in UMAP, we talk about all the strengths and we talk about how can you use them specifically in your own life. So how we kind of mix it together is we come up with a strengths value statement. And this might not be completely exactly the way you're thinking now, just because we haven't worked together for a few months, but this is the one we came up with. I generate lots of problem solving ideas by communicating the requirements of others and working innovatively to create positive results for the community. Would you say that's still you?
Yeah, I think so. It's very, very fundamental, kind of gets down to the very basics of how I feel about my strengths and how I feel I can contribute. And I think it's, yeah, pretty accurate and pretty good.
Hmm. And we looked at what are three rules or guidelines that can help people in your life understand your strengths. And so one of them was keeping a highly collaborative, open minded space, debates and verbal communication with your peers, and connecting experiences to feel less isolation with each other, communicating in empathetic ways. So, how are that you're a freshman now? Which we really haven't talked too much since you started your freshman year. How are you using these rules or guidelines in your classroom? And have you talked to your teachers about it?
So I've definitely noticed that the teachers that already kind of have a teaching style similar to this, I've been way more engaged. And I've actually done better in those classes. My biology class, for example, kind of hits all three of these, and I've noticed that I'm, much more comfortable, much more motivated. stuff like that versus, more solitary classes like my web development class. I don't feel as much drawn toward it, but I still find ways for myself to make it enjoyable. Like we're writing our own websites in HTML code right now. And I made it easier for myself just by thinking of it in a way like, oh, people are going to see this and I want to tell a story and I want to educate them. So I'm going to pick this topic. And that really helped me get into writing the code and designing everything.
Do you think that that is because of our work together? Like, would you have thought of doing it that way if we wouldn't have done the UMAP?
No, definitely not. I didn't really process that was any way that I could, you know, help with the way that I was being taught. I thought I
Mm.
kind of just had to go with it. And then we learned with UMAP, there are ways that are actually going to make things much easier for me to learn. And it was really awesome to learn. And I've been noticing that I've been thinking about it and using it a lot more.
I love that. Now, have you been able to use any of this information in your family? Is there things that you've talked to your parents about or things you do differently at home?
I think we already have a pretty close-knit space, but I've noticed that I generally feel more positive when we eat dinner together,
Mhm.
which wasn't something that we did a ton before, but now we're trying to do it more because my mom just wants to, pick up and have family dinners. And I've felt a lot more like connected and happy and peaceful after eating dinner together.
Okay,
That's one thing that I think helps
that's perfect.
has stemmed off of that.
And then we work on values. And so I'm pretty sure you came up with 10. I know I have 10 values that I chose to.
Yeah, I
You can
think I chose
choose, I think you can choose 5 to 10. And so it kind of just depends on which ones resonate with you in when you're doing the assessment. But when we look at values and after the 10 are chosen, then we define all of them based on how you define them because sometimes what I might, well, this very first one that's on the screen, inner harmony, just because I might think of inner harmony as one way, you might think of it in a different way. So we want to definitely define it based on the client. And then we talk about, is it something that you want other people to have in your life as well? Or is it a personal value that it's okay if your friends don't have it or your partner doesn't have it or whatever? And then we talked about, is it aligned in your life right now? Is it neutral in your life or is it misaligned? And so since this is also an audio podcast, I'm going to read them really quick because some people might not watch the video, but the ones that you chose are inner harmony, growth, making a difference, creativity, adventure, community, love and connection, fun, balance, and curiosity. So, if as just looking through these really quick, you had said that inner harmony was neutral. And I don't know if you remember back then, why you maybe said it was neutral. Could you say anything about that?
I mean, I think the inner harmony is important for everyone to, kind of think about and reach. But I also think that if you don't have inner harmony, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to have a fulfilling life.
Mm-hmm.
So I put it in neutral because I feel like it's kind of aligns with everyone in their life and in their choices that they're going to make just because it relates directly to it. But I also feel that no matter what happens, inner harmony uh it's not going to make a direct product out of anything, I feel.
Mm-hmm. And do you think it's also because it's a work in progress for you?
Yeah, it's
Well, for everyone, really?
a constant upwards climb. Like you're never going to reach complete inner harmony.
Yes, exactly. And sometimes because most of my clients are minors, you don't have as much agency or power in your life to live where you want to or do the things that you want to because someone else is kind of controlling some of that. And so I find that when my clients say that a value is neutral or misaligned, it almost always has to do with that they don't have complete power to make that difference. Now,
Yeah.
inner harmony is an inner thing, which wouldn't really fit for that necessarily. But let's see if there's another one on here. I didn't look at all these exactly. Making a difference was misaligned. Tell me about that.
Um I think, yeah, that it really relates to me being young and not having a ton of agency over bigger things in my life. So I feel like it's currently misaligned because the jobs that I want to go into and the things that I want to consider doing when I'm older all have something to do with making a difference. And that's very important to me, is making a difference in my life and my community. Um,
Mhm.
I felt like, oh, I could do so much more if I just had, more agency over my decisions.
Yes, exactly. And let's see if there's another one that was neutral or misaligned. Most of them, oh, balance was neutral.
Balance.
Tell me about that.
Because I feel like when you're a student, there's a lot of things that are going to throw off your balance, like, oh, it's finals week, or sorry, I have an essay due tomorrow. So you can't kind of focus on like the happy mediums in everything because you're so busy thinking about, um, all right, how am I going to finish this? How do I impress this teacher and stuff like that? So I feel like even though there are times when it can be aligned and it can, feel right in your life, it can also be easily knocked off course by external sort of things.
Exactly. I love that. Okay. So most of them were aligned, and I think that's just because you do work pretty hard to make your
Um,
values be aligned with your
and a
life.
lot of them are very like internal
Mhm.
things
Mhm.
or things with relationships that I can nurture.
One of the number one reasons why adults are unhappy in their jobs is because their job doesn't align with their values. And so I know you don't have a job, I don't think right now. You didn't when we worked together, and it's still early in your life, but we did talk a little bit about how will you make sure that your values will be aligned with the job that you choose, and tell me where you're at with that and what you came up with.
I think that living in a place that's, or, having a job that's so creative, which is the kind of thing that I want to go into. I want to go into art or storytelling and theater of some sorts.
Mhm.
Um, it's all going to kind of align with those values just because I feel that I'm telling a story and it is an inner journey as well as an external one. I feel like I can, bring all of those values into my work no matter which path I decide to take.
Mhm. And I'm so glad that you know them so that you can be looking for those things when you're choosing those jobs and schools, and really values help us make all of our decisions in our lives. Have you noticed when you've made decisions since we've done this, do you think about your values and how they could maybe help you make a decision?
I often think about, there are a lot of people that don't act like very often out of empathy. Well, I
Mm.
feel like it drives like all of my decisions is
Mhm.
my empathy and things like that. Like I feel like that's a very strong sort of value for me or strength. And communication, obviously, I just love to talk and tell stories and joke around. And I feel like a lot of the things I do are driving me towards being able to debate this topic or tell my friend about this thing. So they definitely creep into my daily life and they're helpful, I think.
Yeah. And part of the coaching that I do is help you see how all these things kind of get fit together and how to use them in all aspects of your life. And so on this page that we're looking at, we looked at how do you express your strengths through your values. And so we won't go through all of these, but we took the 5 strengths that we talked about in the first pillar, and then we take the values from this pillar, and then we kind of mix it together and talk about how are you expressing your strengths through your values. And it really helps you to kind of start solidifying some of these things in your mind so that you know how to talk about them, how to advocate for yourself when your values might be getting misaligned or when your strengths are not being recognized. And so the last thing that we do with values is we look at all of them and we come up with goals or ideas or things that we can do to help us live more aligned in our values. And so some of the things, as I just look through this, you were I think we talked about it when it was going to be summertime, because I know with your love and connection value, you were kind of worried about summer and maybe not seeing people and being connected. So one of your goals was you wanted to set up more times where you hung out with people.
Yeah, and I feel like I definitely accomplished that. There were some pretty big like citywide events, and I would always go to those with my friends over the summer. We had a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. I'd say like once or twice a week I would go to somebody's house and be playing that. And just generally we took a couple trips to the mall, stuff like that, and I felt really, really happy with being able to do that so much more than I have in the past.
Oh, that's great. And that connected with your community value and your creativity value because we talked about, and you had written on here that Dungeons and Dragons is kind of that problem solving creativity. And also, your art and everything that you do is also within that creativity, and your theater is all creative. So then the next pillar we talk about is skills. And so we break it down from preferred skills versus burnout skills. And so in looking at all this, your number one, like preferred skills category was conceptual, creative, and interpersonal technical, which totally makes sense because of the art and the theater and wanting to do think you do like to do digital art
Yeah.
too as well, so then that fits into that technical piece.
I love things like coding and computer mods and stuff like that.
It's perfect. And so, I'm just gonna quickly go through this, but then we talked about, how can you advocate for using your preferred skills more? Have you, been able to talk to your teachers at all about using your preferred skills more often in the classroom?
I felt like a lot of the way that I did that was actually planning out which classes were going to use these skills when I was starting to take
Mm,
them. Like,
okay.
I would rather take biology than earth science because I
Mhm,
know that there are like we're going to be designing graphs and stuff for it versus earth science where we'll just be studying certain things.
mhm.
And taking lots of artistic extracurriculars so that when I even when I have classes that I'm not using those skills, I'm going to be using them in classes later or classes before that. Um,
Perfect.
yeah,
Well, and I think, and yours is on there too, almost every client I have, study is a burnout skill. And when we're in school, we have to study. We can't like say, oh, that's a burnout skill. I'm not going to do it. But we talked a little bit about how to make burnout skills um, doable. Like, how can you get through burnout skills when you have to do it? So, has that helped you at all in how school works for you?
definitely. I think that when I'm taking notes, I have been purposefully kind of like doodling things that are relevant to the topic and then writing notes in or around those. And it's been helping me stay focused and things like that, which is really cool. Um,
Mhm.
with homework and stuff, I'll motivate myself with music, things like that, or I'll have something artistic on in the background, like some sort of art tutorial or something to have on in the background, just because I correlate that with staying productive. So my brain makes the connections, and it's been really awesome to kind of like hotwire my brain almost into being able to do stuff like that.
Mhm. And again, you think that that's because you know these things and not just because
Yes,
you would have normally
definitely.
done it? Okay,
No, I
cool.
mean, I might have done similar things, but I wouldn't have been able to, see the correlations.
Yeah, definitely. One of your burnout categories is managing projects and supervising people. Now, you probably don't have to supervise a lot of people, but in knowing that, does that help you to think about, again, jobs in the future and things that you're going to do um, for a career? Do you think about how managing projects and supervising is a burnout skill and what you would do about that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, in my job, there are going to be times when I'm going to have to manage people, and I think it's a lot easier for me to almost like connect with them empathetically to find the best way to delegate things. Um,
Hmm.
and also, being able to have someone that is like actually leading that I'm comfortable with that. I'm like, hey, I need you to relay this information. So even if I'm still having to be the mastermind, I'm not the one that has to go face to face with all of it.
Mm, that's so good. And you're thinking about your strength of empathy. And when you can use that strength, you're going to feel more comfortable doing that. I love that. And then we started searching careers, and we're going to talk about this in this pillar and in the other one. But one of the things that you want to do is work for Pixar or do some kind of storyboard creation. And you could probably explain that a little bit better. But we just went into a job, I don't know, board, a job openings board or whatever, and looked at what are the requirements or what are the things that they're going to look for when they want to hire somebody to work at Pixar. And we found some software names of like, we'd like you to be fluent in using these programs. And we really realized that you could do that during high school, at least get
Yep.
fluent with them, like either practicing using them or even taking some courses where you would know how to do it. So you are so ready to take those jobs when you graduate.
Yeah, definitely. It's been cool to like know that the jobs that I'm going into fit so well with
Mhm.
the things that I've seen with YouMap. Uh
Mhm.
and I'm like, oh, I feel like I knew these subconsciously even before I was realizing them consciously. And I'm really glad that they align with the jobs that I want to do in the future because I don't want my burnout skills or anything to stop me.
Exactly. And I think even if I haven't had a client yet that were like their strengths and values were completely misaligned with what they want to do. But I think even if you found that out, you could then use this information to try to make the job be the best that it could be. And I always think it's important to like try out some of these things ahead of time because sometimes a job sounds really fun or looks like the right thing to do, and then you go into it even like in a volunteer or internship way, and then you're like, oh, that is so boring, or I hate that. And so it's so important to try as much as you can. Now, somebody who wants to be a doctor can't go pretend to be a doctor to see if they like it,
Yeah.
but even if they just went into volunteering at some place that's a medical clinic or whatever, they could
Yeah.
kind of see how it feels to know if that's what they really want to do. So, and you're already practicing a lot of the things that you want to do, and you're just going to put yourself in more and more situations where you can use these skills. And I think that's amazing. So then when we look at your personality or your interests, of course, it came up that you're artistic enterprising, which means you're a creator persuader. And so then we look at all the descriptor words and the phrases, and some of these are given to us and we kind of just read them, and then you just decide which ones fit for you because there's no assessment that you could take that's going to be exactly word for word who you are. And you can probably remember where when you took the stuff out that you were like, yes, this is me, and this doesn't really sound like me.
Yeah, I can remember just going like, "Oh, that's interesting that that's there," because that is not at all what I think.
And so we kind of we use this tool to better us or help us. So if there's something that's completely misaligned or we're like, there's no way that I'm that person, we might be curious about why is it there, but we also don't spend a whole lot of time worrying about the parts that don't sound like us. We just worry
And
about the
also,
parts that do.
it helps with people that you feel like are similar to you. It
Mhm.
helps realize, oh, there's actually a lot of nuance in these categories, and there's a lot of different ways this could go. And it can kind of offer an outside explanation almost for other things that are happening or other
Right.
people may assume.
And we do a lot of exploring, and this page shows that we go to a career finder and we put in artistic.
Enterprising.
Yes, I was like, I think I want to say persuader, but I knew that wasn't it. So we put in artistic enterprising, and then we just look. And so sometimes you're going to see jobs that you've never heard of before, or and of course there's jobs there that you're like, no, I would never want to do that. But you can explore them, and you can explore them down to what school is near you that has that program. And I don't know if you explored any of it really on your own or it was more just when we were together, but you can even apply to school through that program.
Yeah.
And so
Oh,
I've showed that to some of my older clients who are getting ready to actually apply for college. We go in and find the ones that match for the things that they want to do. And then I just take them right to the college page. Here's the apply now. Here's where you apply for scholarships. Here's where you fill out the application. And it's just really helpful to have this information because you can use these words in your college application and in your scholarship essays because it's about you.
mhm.
I don't know if you've ever had to try to come up with ways to describe you without this, but I think it's really hard to do.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to do. I've had to write some like actor profiles
Mm,
to send in to things for auditions, and they ask you to give like a what can you bring to this show? And I always sit there like, "Oh man, what can I bring to this show?" But now even just thinking about doing it, which I haven't really been thinking about writing something about myself, I think it would be way easier because now I just have these slides that I can look on and be like, "Oh yeah, these are
mhm.
words that fit."
Yes. And so on this one, we talk about how can you express your personality, your interests through your skills. So we look at your skills and we just put all of that together so that all this information is really just in one package you, and we want you to see how can all these things work together. And just for the parents who are listening or watching, this is all shared as long as my client is okay with it, which Oliver was fine with it, is shared with the parents so that the parents can also look at this and understand what are the skills and the interests and strengths and values, which is really helpful. Have you talked to your parents at all about the things that we did together?
I think yeah, a little bit just because it's helped me kind of explain more like my needs and my explanations for things.
Mhm.
Just in a general day-to-day life, it's been way easier to be like, I think I need to figure out some way to make this like a creative process,
Mhm.
so that I can finish it on time.
Mhm.
Or I think we need to find some other way to accomplish this because currently it's not really working out for me.
Yeah. I have a client who generosity is one of his values. And he said it was misaligned, so we were talking about it, and he said, "It's because I want to like, I see homeless people and I wanna give them money, but my parents tell me no." And so we talked about, well, here's why your parents are probably concerned about giving money. But my friend has this system where she just buys these little paper like lunch bags and she puts in a toothbrush and a granola bar and I don't know, just different things that might be comforting to someone who's homeless. And then whenever she sees someone like that, she just hands it out the window. And so she's not giving them money. Maybe it has a
Yeah.
coupon to a fast food restaurant or I don't
Yeah,
know. It's
but it's
just something.
specific, like, they know what they're gonna spend the money on.
Right. And so I said, "Hey, why don't you try that?" And so talk to your family about creating some of those bags in your car. And then when you're driving along, you can be generous and your parents will feel good about it. So there's just so many ways that you can use this information. Then
Yeah,
we talk about deal makers and deal breakers because it's important to know, what is important. Not only are these deal makers and deal breakers for work, but they're for relationships and family and school and then how can you use this information to talk to people about it? And we talk about what your ideal day look like at school, at home, and at work, and we have to kind of put all this stuff together. And then we take keywords and phrases from every pillar and we come up with a unique contribution statement. And I think this is my favorite part of this whole process because I think a lot of young people don't realize they have a unique contribution to this world. We
yeah.
all do. And for you to know at are you 14 now? 15, 14?
14.
At 14 years old to know what your unique contribution is to this world, you have so many more years to actually be practicing it because you know what it is. I know people my age that are wandering around like, I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. So your unique contribution was I am an inventive, empathetic storyteller who conceptualizes and initiates change for my community with the motivation to make a difference.
Yeah,
And do you say that that still encompasses who you are?
definitely. I mean, I think just when we get right down to the root of it, that is, what I want to be left behind. Like my legacy is,
Mhm.
telling a story that creates change,
Yes.
representing people and creating art and inventing and just, yeah.
Well, this last year, you won your state's history. You might have to explain it a little bit better, but the state history contest.
Yes. So that was in eighth grade. My honors history teacher had us participate in this contest called History Day. So it's basically from the prompt, which that year was, I think, pivotal points in history or something like that. We had to choose something that related to that and find all of these sources and write about it in one of 5 different categories. And the category that I chose was a website because I wanted to get better with my coding skills and have lots of design opportunities. Um, and it was just an incredible experience to find all of these things on this topic that I had chosen and make them into something that people were going to see. And
Mhm.
I think also delivering that information to the judges was a really exhilarating part of it, and it was
Mhm.
just so worth it, and it was so fun, and I felt really accomplished afterwards.
Well, I just think about that contribution statement and it fits perfectly for that project that you did. You
Yeah,
were a
and
storyteller that made a difference by the story that you told and gave people information about a piece of history that a lot of people don't know about.
yeah, it was really overlooked. Even I looked at this prompt and I found this information that I was going to use, and I was just like, why have I never heard of any of this? Even the
Mhm.
key contributors in this, I have never heard their names. And
Mhm.
it was incredible.
Yeah, so you were able to make a difference by, um, lifting up those people that were involved in that so that more people know about it, which is amazing. So, kind of in conclusion, why if a young person or a parent is listening to this and they're like, "Well, why would I wanna get the YouMap for my kid?" Or, "Why would I wanna take the YouMap?" What would you say about that?
I think I would just say that it boils down to knowing yourself and all the ways that you can traverse through life effectively. It certainly can't hurt to take the test, and even if you don't get much out of it, you'll still have this incredibly invaluable information that will help you throughout every aspect of your life, even if you're not even noticing it in the moment. It completely changes your perspective on yourself. At least it did for me. Um,
Mhm.
I just think it's a really awesome experience to be able to learn these things about yourself that have been inside you that you've been bringing to the world all along that you didn't even know the names for. I think it's
Mhm.
incredible.
Well, one of the phrases that UMAP uses that I love the most is you find out what's right with you.
Yes.
And I think that a lot of young people think something is wrong with them. And when like probably you could even give an example of, one of your strengths that you found out about. Has anyone ever thought you were weird because you had that strength? Or have you ever gotten in trouble because of one of those strengths?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up as the kid that talked a lot, that was constantly just chatting with everybody and disrupting class. And I always felt so ashamed after I would be talking to somebody. And then I realized I think that's just in the classroom. I think that's my need for communication.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of why I do the things I do. And that's not a bad thing in my life. That's just something that maybe didn't work out the way that it could have in my school. So I was
Mm.
constantly like, oh my gosh, why do I talk so much? Why can't I just sit and be quiet? But then I realized that's how I learn.
Yes. Oh, that's so great. And I feel like if teachers got the profile for each of their students, and not that they could do 25 different ways of the classroom,
Yeah.
but they might have more empathy or
Or just
more understanding.
understand.
Yeah,
Yeah,
why
understanding.
somebody's talking all the time or I have another client whose command is one of their strengths, and command is the rarest of all 34 strengths.
Oh,
And command can if you overuse command, it comes off as bossy.
yeah.
So she is always getting in trouble for being bossy when that's a strength. And
Yeah.
because it's a rare strength, that's actually something that she can really expand on when she's trying to apply for a job or apply for scholarship and talk about how command is actually, good and why it's good and how it fits in her life. So,
Not everyone can be a CEO and not everyone can teach a class full of rowdy seventh graders. Like it's
yeah.
always gonna be an invaluable trait for
Yeah.
somebody. And
Yeah.
I feel
Well, and
like
she wants to
every
go into law enforcement, so it's gonna be great.
exactly, that's perfect.
Yeah. I know it's been fun for me to see what kids are wanting to do and then how this just fits perfectly
That's like a puzzle
in.
piece.
Yeah. Yeah. And to just know that, you have a lot of things that are right with you, especially at
Yeah.
a time in your life when you do feel awkward and weird and confused and all the things. You won't be confused or awkward when you know that this is who you are and this is how you were put together in a good way.
I feel like so many people and just inside in society in general, it's always focused on what are the problems with you and how can we
Mhm.
fix these problems to make you a more effective member of society. But
Mhm.
then it's no one ever focuses on you are actually have so much potential and so much to give to society.
Yes.
This
That
is
unique contribution that
yeah,
everyone can do.
this is the first it was the first time that I had been like, "Oh, this is focusing on what's right with me. I don't have to, kind of be in the dark about it anymore or feel like I'm lesser than other people."
Definitely. Well, I am going to be following your art and
You
theater career, and I love it when former students and former clients, I get to see them shine and do all the amazing things that they wanted to do, and I'm glad I got to see you again. I get used to seeing people weekly, and then it's like, "Oh, I don't see them
Oh,
anymore." I know it's a little bit
alone.
sad, but we'll just have to keep in contact and,
For sure.
so I can find out how you're doing, and I'll keep in contact with your mom too.
Hopefully I can start now that I've kind of got a hang of being a freshman, I think I'm going to start posting a lot more on my Instagram account so you'll be able to see those artworks too.
All right. I will definitely be paying attention to that, and I will put that in the show notes for anyone who wants to follow your art career as well. So
Okay.
thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope that everyone that was listening can see how amazing it is, and everyone should have a UMAP.
Yeah, thank you so much for letting me talk about this. I think it's really something that everyone should be able to do because it's just so awesome.
Oh, well, I'm glad you think so, and you were the perfect person for me to start this series with.
Thank